The City of Vandalia City Council meeting for February the 20th, 2017 is now called to order. We will have a moment of reflection followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Would you please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council, you have before you the council study session minutes of February the 6th, also the council meeting minutes of February the 6th. Are there any revisions to those? Seeing none, they'll stand approved. We have no communication, petitions, or awards this evening, nor do we have any public hearings, and that brings us to the section where we can have comments from interested citizens, which means if there's anyone who would like to make a comment to council, please come to the podium, state your name and address for our records, and then your comment.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Durig, and I've been a resident here in Vandalia for 17 years. I moved here in June of 2000. My reason for attending tonight's City Council meeting is to make you aware of the overpopulation of community, stray, feral cats in my neighborhood that are being fed by my neighbors. Twice, I have spoken to the neighbors to discourage them from feeding and offering shelter to the undisclosed number of nuisance cats. I patiently explained how the cats are defecating in my flower beds and preying upon the songbirds feeding from my bird feeders. To this writing, they continue to feed and shelter the cats. After speaking to other neighbors, I discovered they too have had enough of the increasing amount of cats and the problems they are causing in their yards. Like countless other people, I care deeply for our environment, all plants and animals, and I especially am easily upset with the inhumane treatment of any animal. At first, it seemed understandable to me why someone would want to feed and provide shelter for the community stray cats. Then I began to research this widespread problem and gave it considerable thought and came to a startling realization. Feeding and providing shelter to community feral cats who have had litter after litter of kittens, who have never been seen or cared for by a veterinarian, are doomed to a lifetime of misery. Imagine the unrelenting daily suffering these cats endure from ear mites, ticks, fleas, parasites, not to mention the contagious communicable diseases contracted from and passed along to the other cats. The genetic diseases passed along to the kittens, all of which in some cases lead to a slow and painful death. And for this reason, I now find the feeding and sheltering of community cats a form of animal abuse because it promotes the lifelong pain and suffering to these hapless creatures who are allowed to roam and reproduce. These unfortunate cats are pets to no one, as no one cares enough to ensure that they are vaccinated and treated by a veterinarian on a regular basis. And another disturbing fact to this situation is that the domesticated cat is not indigenous to North America. They were originally brought to this continent by European settlers. Free-roaming house cats are making a huge impact by preying upon and reducing the native North American songbird population. An article from USA Today, January 2013, states, cats kills up to 3.7 billion birds annually. According to the ASPCA, the feral cat population is now estimated to be 70 million in the U.S. In researching this further, I learned a large percentage of all feral cat feces contained a parasite which causes the disease toxoplasmosis. Humans can contract this disease should they come into contact with the infected cat feces. I'm asking the mayor and the city council to look for ways to inform, educate, and strongly discourage the citizens of Vandalia from feeding and offering shelter to the overpopulation of the stray cats that are free roaming, causing a potential health hazard to humans, and preying upon the native songbird population. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk with you regarding this matter.
Thank you very much. And as I think you know, that we did have a workshop this past Saturday, and that was the topic one of the topics that we discussed. And Mr. Cruzy, would you like to give the conclusion that we came to at this point, at least?
Yeah, like I said, that was one of the topics council discussed on Saturday, and they've given us direction to prepare an ordinance that would prohibit the outdoor feeding of any animals, or at the outdoor feeding that attracts animals, attracts strays along those lines. So we'll be working with the law director to put together a draft ordinance. Most likely we'll have it back for council's meeting on your next council meeting. I don't remember the date for your next council meeting. Anybody?
March 6th.
So,
March 6th.
So March 6th. So a March 6th study session at 6 o'clock. Again, we should be discussing a draft ordinance regarding the feeding of stray animals.
And we also indicated at the time that we're going to try this, and if it does not work, we will then pursue other avenues. So we're very, very much aware of this situation. And part of that, did we not say that we are trying to sort of let the community all know, not just in your neighborhood, but the entire community, about the feeding of cats?
Correct. Yeah, we would utilize our quarterly newsletter as well as social media to get the information out once we have legislation in place, letting people know that that's prohibited.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Harry Campbell. I live at 627 Co Avenue. I've been in Vandalia since 1954 when I was a mere lad of 9 years old. So I've been here a while. Concerning, you all know we've discussed this before about the American Legion. Again, I say it's a great organization. They do a tremendous amount of job, but due to the evaluation of my property, I'm 20 foot from their back door. I appreciate if you'd turn this down because there's other places they can go. I bring up the fact that the VFW is not out there in Old Springfield, is not close to neighbors, the same way with the AMVETs. And I'd just like to make this point across that we need a safe neighborhood. And also I'd like to thank the council. I heard it on the news last night where you turned down the fair people again. I appreciate that. And also, I was here last spring and asked you to have David Lewis Sabak's memorial banner put up, and you did that so this summer. I appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Mark Stunich. I live at 603 Co Avenue. My house actually sits on the corner of Co and Helke, right where they're planning on doing the American Legion there. And we've been awful concerned about what property value of our houses are going to be, the safety of our children, the people that's going to be leaving the American Legion, and they're going to be having alcoholic beverages and drinking. They're going to leave, some of them will be intoxicated, going right out into our neighborhoods. I do think there's a better place for the American Legion to be. If this would happen to go through, they're changing the ordinances so that you can have a club in there. When and if American Legion decides to vacate that building also, in which they have a couple others, then this opens up this whole section there for a situation that can just escalate into harm for our neighborhoods. We've got children, we've got grandchildren, we've got people elderly that's lived there for a long time. We're trying to protect a nice, safe, happy environmental neighborhood here. And I don't believe that to bring in the American Legions at this location is a responsible thing to do. When we bought our house there about 18, 20 years ago, one of the things we looked at was the neighborhood. We had a church there. We had a school just down the street from us. That school is now leveled. The church that was there is now being taken away, a club putting in. But these are things that we looked at when we moved in. And if and when we sell or we pass on and our children takes over our houses and they sell it, the buyers are going to be looking at the same thing. We're dropping at the same time we drop our property value, we're dropping the value of our neighborhood. And I'm asking you to keep our values up where it should be. There's a time and place for everything. And I don't think the time and place for American Legion in our backyard is correct. Please consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening?
Good evening, Council. My name is Joyce Orange. I live at 609 Co Avenue, and most of it's been mentioned what I was going to bring up, but I just want to throw something out to you all. How would you feel if a bar or a club or a pub or a drinking establishment, whatever you want to call it, was 20 feet away from your backyard? How would you feel? How would you feel if you had more than one realtor tell you that your property would go down at least 30% and possibly 40%? Even your own Mr. Hurst here said our property would be affected. He didn't give a percentage, but he said our property would be affected. Can you afford to take a 30% hit on your property? I can't. I've lived there 52 years, and this is just the wrong place for this kind of establishment. There's so many other locations that's more. There's one up in Airline Dairy Center. There's one there on National Road. There's one over at Blockbuster. Just many, many other places that this could go in. And they're going to be having fish fries. They're going to be having dinner parties. They're going to be renting out their hall. And they're already 35 places short, 35 parking spots short, which means they're going to be parking on Helke, which is the third or fourth busiest street in the city. They're going to be parking on our street, our little Co-Avenue cul-de-sac, where our little kids, they're too young to be out riding the bikes anyplace else. They ride on the street. Their scooters, their skateboards, and all this. And, of course, we're out there watching. All the other neighbors know that they're there. But if they have a party, they're, like I say, they'll be parking on our street with slamming doors and loud noises and everything else from till 1 o'clock in the morning. I still work 3 days a week. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. And once I'm awake, I'm awake. I can't go back to sleep. So this is just really just an inappropriate place for this kind of establishment to be. And there's going to be beer truck deliveries, more than one, because there's several types of beers out there. So there's going to be numerous beer truck deliveries, pop deliveries, food truck deliveries. And we're not talking little pickup-sized trucks. We're talking semis. If you all been up there and checked that out, where they would pull in, say, off National Road into the church lot, that opening is really small, which means they're going to have to try to swing it out and swing it over, and there's no way they can back it up or turn it around, which means they're going to come along the side of the church and, again, try to swing that big truck around into the back parking area, which backs up to our property, to try to get out on Helke Road. Because they couldn't make a left turn on National Road, even if they could get out because of the size of the vehicle. And they're going to be there coming off Helke Road again, trying to get through across there to get out to their other property, their other deliveries. But I do have a question I'd like to ask, and maybe you remember off the top of your heads. I don't recall. Let me see if I have it here. What is the setback requirements for a bar or, again, a drinking establishment between the property line of the residential area? Isn't there something in our city charter or in an ordinance that says you have to be so many feet away from a residential area?
I apologize. My mic was off. Yeah, Amber's going to look that up for us and give us an answer.
Okay. And talking about the lighting back there, if you all decide to go the other way, doesn't there have to be lights in the back of that building? There's no lights whatsoever in the back of that church now. There are 3 downspouts, which means the water all comes onto our property, eroding our property, which has been done in the past, and also it's going to continue, and the parking lot is just a crumbled mess. There's no drains back there. There is one drain, and it's at the very front of the property in that little grass section there, by the dog shop. And there's a drain up at the very front by the sidewalk, about 1.5 feet from the sidewalk, which does nothing for draining of water for anybody. It's a waste. But there's nothing whatsoever back on our property line. And like I say, all the downspouts drain onto our property, and there's no lighting back there. And isn't it required also to have, if you have doors, to have lights at every door? Some kind of light?
Is Amber ready to answer?
The setback requirement for a traditional tavern or bar is 200 feet from a residential district.
That's not 200 feet.
Yes, ma'am. The use actually, for the Legion, qualifies as a club under the zoning code. And while the club may serve alcohol, it is not a traditional tavern or bar for the definition.
Will you repeat that again? It is a drinking establishment. I must have misunderstood what you said.
An establishment, just because that establishment may serve alcohol, it doesn't qualify as a tavern or bar under the definition set forth in the zoning code. It qualifies as a club use, which means that there's paid memberships.
It's still a bar, but like I said, please take into consideration how you all would feel if you was in the situation we are in, and losing the kind of money that we would lose if, for some reason, we decide to sell our house. We can't. We're stuck. Because I can't lose 30% of what my house is worth, and I know the other people back here can't either. We lived there too long, 52 years, 18 years. The young lady that lives next to me, she can't come. She's a nurse. She couldn't come tonight. She's been there 10 years. The couple across the street's been there 18 years. They couldn't come because they have small children, too. So please take all that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak this evening? Seeing none, we'll continue with the city manager's report, and we have no information items this evening, nor do we have any action items, nor do we have any old business, and that brings us to our first resolution, 17-R-20. Mr. McDonald, by title only, please.
Resolution 17R20, a resolution waiving the formal bidding requirement and authorizing certain services from DH Productions during the 2017 calendar year.
Thank you. Mr. Cruzy?
Thank you, Your Honor. The city currently uses DH Productions for the taping and editing of our Focus Vandalia and By the Way videos. We did receive 4 quotes from various vendors, with DH Productions submitting the lowest cost.
Thank you. Would you just give us a range about, you don't have to give us the company name, but would you give us a range of what the other quotes were?
Yeah, what DH Productions cost for us is $1,100 per episode. The other vendors, we received quotes ranging from $2,500 to $4,700 per episode.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve Resolution 17R-20 as submitted.
Second. It's been moved by Councilman Herb, second by Councilwoman Farr, that we do approve Resolution 17-R-20 as presented. Any comments from anyone? I know that there had been some question about the amount that we were paying for those productions, and so I'm glad that we did go through and get some estimates of what it would be for us to contract with someone else. So with that, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Blakesley?
Yes.
Councilmember Gerhardt?
Yes.
Councilmember Farce?
Yes.
Councilmember Herbst?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lewis?
Yes.
Mayor Setzer?
Yes, and the motion carries 6-0. Resolution 17-R-21, Mr. McDonald.
Resolution 17R21, a resolution approving a financial contribution to the Historical Society of Vandalia Butler.
Mr. Cruzy?
Thank you, Your Honor. $15,000 is appropriated in Council's budget for a donation to the Historical Society of Vandalia Butler for any and all maintenance and related projects. Again, it's necessary for Council to take formal action to authorize this donation.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Your Honor, move we approve Resolution 17R21 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Lewis, second by Councilman Blakesley, that we do approve Resolution 17-R-21 as presented. And I think we should also mention that there are some restrictions as to how they can use this money, and it's for the upkeep
Upkeep, repair, and maintenance of their property.
And each year then they do send us a listing of everything that they have done and how the monies have been allocated. So I think that's kind of important. Anyone else? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gerhard,
Yes.
Councilmember Farce,
Yes.
Councilmember Herbst,
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lewis,
Yes.
Mayor Setzer.
Yes, and the motion carries 6-0. Resolution 17-R-22, Mr. McDonald.
17R22, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with Montgomery County Board of County Commissioners for Community Development Block Grant funds for concrete repair work, including installation of handicap ramps, and street resurfacing of various streets.
Thank you. Mr. Cruzy?
Thank you, Your Honor. The city has been awarded $50,000 in Community Development Block Grant funds through Montgomery County to be used toward concrete repairs and street resurfacing. One area of the city qualifies for the use of these funds. 4 streets have been identified in this area to make concrete repairs, including the addition of handicap-accessible ramps at the intersections and resurfacing the entire street. Those streets include Marcellus, Buttercup, Kirkwood, and Helke. And it's necessary for the city to enter into a CDBG agreement with Montgomery County, which sets forth the responsibilities of each party pertaining to the administration of this project.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Your Honor, move that we approve Resolution 17R22 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Lewis, second by Councilman Herbst, that we do approve Resolution 17-R-22 as presented. Any comments? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Farce,
Yes.
Councilmember Herbst,
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley,
Yes.
Councilmember Gerhard,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lewis,
Yes.
Mayor Setzer.
Yes, and the motion carries 6-0. Resolution 17-R-23, Mr. McDonald.
17R23, a resolution strongly opposing the provisions within the State of Ohio Governor's proposed 2018-2019 budget, which proposes a centralized collection of net profit tax returns and other provisions related to the municipal income tax, which will cause a substantial loss of revenue needed to support the health, safety, welfare, and economic development efforts of Ohio municipalities.
Thank you. Mr. Cruzy?
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, as the law director said, Governor Kasich's proposed budget does include a provision that would centralize the collection of business net profit returns to the Ohio Business Gateway. And I'll tell you, businesses currently have the ability to utilize the Ohio Business Gateway, and they choose not to because of its lack of functionality. It does not work. So now what is optional for these businesses will now become mandatory, according to the governor's proposal. This proposal will further erode the city's home rule powers, and it will implement what I call phase 2 of a centralized collection system for municipal income taxes. 2 years ago, the state required all municipalities in the state of Ohio to adopt uniform income tax ordinances. The reason for that was so that they could eventually come in and take over the collection of income taxes for every city in the state of Ohio. So this is phase 2. They're now going to start taking over the collection of business net profit returns. Next year, we'll hear from them that there's other parts of our income tax collection process that they want to take over. Now, for the pleasure of taking over those returns, they're going to charge us a 1% fee for this service, even though we still have to maintain our income tax department. So there won't be any reduced expenditures on our side except for the fee that the state's going to collect. So our estimate is only going to cost not only, but it's going to be about a $20,000 annual fee. On top of that, the state's going to be responsible for collecting, auditing, and enforcing these filings. which means the state's going to do a very poor job of collecting these income taxes. They won't audit these companies to make sure they're accurate the way that our income tax department does. And for those people that don't file appropriately, they will not be taking them to court the way that our income tax department does. So in addition to charging us 1% to collect these fees or these taxes from businesses, we're going to receive less revenue because the state will do a very poor job of collecting and enforcing the provisions that it wants to mandate to us. And on top of that, our net profit revenue that's collected by the state will be remitted to us quarterly. Currently, we collect this revenue monthly. And in the short term, it's not a big deal. In the big scheme of the city's income tax collections, our net profit returns are not that big a number. Ultimately, when the state decides they want to take over all of the city's income tax collections from withholding, individuals, businesses, that are the income tax revenue coming back to the city will be done quarterly instead of monthly, which again will have a major impact on the city's cash flow. And on top of that, they will charge us more to collect it, and they will do a much poorer job collecting that tax than what our folks do. So you're not only to pay more to have the state take over what we do locally, they're going to do a very poor job collecting it. All you have to do is to go talk to any school administrator that has an income tax and find out how pleased they are with the way the state of Ohio collects their taxes. Actually talk to anybody and find out if they're pleased with how the state operates just about anything. What do I have? I think that's all of my rant for now. So again, this resolution, we will be sending this to our state senator, state representative, and the governor, as well as the Ohio Municipal League. Most of the cities in the state of Ohio are adopting similar legislation and opposing this. Again, we encourage our residents to get out, notify your state representative, Mike Henney, notify your state senator, Peggy Lehner, if you have concerns about this. Again, hearing from us means one thing. Hearing from the residents, I think, carries a lot more weight. So don't be afraid to send them an email, send them a letter. Again, because if they can get this through, the next couple phases will be easy for them to eventually take over all the income tax collections at the municipal level across the state of Ohio.
I'm just going to add to that before I ask for a vote, and I believe I talked to Councilman Blakesley. He was here also when we had the city of Dayton collecting our taxes, and the year that we decided to develop our own tax collection department. That year, because of those that were missed, that were not audited, and a number of other factors, we were able to collect monies so that the actual department was paid for that very, very first year. And it's because of the relationships that we have with our businesses, with the idea that we do the audits and the people understand the audits and we're not waiting. And we have run a very tight but very excellent machine in our taxes. And I do not believe that businesses really care where they send their tax money to. But if they can get the help that they need at a local place, I think it's a lot easier. Mike, would you like to make any further comment?
I just agree and echo everything you said, and I believe that we've seen that stability by having our own and being able to collect that, and the percentage of returns that we did not have to go after had reduced greatly. When Dayton did it for us, certainly we saw where we were in arrears in many of the collections, and it was a number of years before we finally caught up. But it does pay for itself, and I think the home rule has something to say about that as far as being able to do that ourselves and do it efficiently. So I would hope that we can oppose this.
And it's just interesting to me that I heard the comment, which I think is true, and that is the gateway that the businesses are supposed to use does not actually work, but what they're going to do is to take the money that they get from us and make it work, so to repair it. So your monies will be then sent to repair a state function instead of our own local functions here. So I think that you're getting the idea that many of us up here, we don't know everything, but we certainly do know the things that are a real possibility and the detrimental effects that they will have upon us. So with that, do you have a motion?
I move that we approve Resolution 17R23 as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Farr, second by Councilman Blakesley, that we do approve the resolution 17-R-23. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Herbst?
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley?
Yes.
Councilmember Gerhardt?
Yes.
Councilmember Fairst?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lewis?
Yes.
Mayor Setzer?
Yes, and the motion passes 6-0. We have ordinances in their first reading, and that's 17-05. Mr. McDonald?
Ordinance 1705, an ordinance approving a planned unit development final development plan for Lot 2 of the 40 West development, formerly referred to as the Vandalia Office Park, and located at 235 West National Road.
Thank you, Mr. Cruzy.
Thank you, Your Honor. So YOLO Development 1 has submitted the final development plan for lot number 2 for this development, which is the former Morton Middle School site. Lot number 2 is a 1.3288 acres and is proposed to be developed in 2 phases. Phase 1 involves approximately a 7,600 square foot medical office building with a 5,000 square foot addition proposed as Phase 2. Off-street parking for Phase 1 is 1 space short of our requirement, with 35 parking spaces being provided. However, Phase 2 off-street parking does exceed our requirements. They're providing 75 parking spaces where only 63 are required. The developer is also proposing a monument sign to be placed on lot number 2 that would be used to identify all businesses in the park, including those with no frontage along National Road. The developer is proposing a 7.5 foot high, 60 square foot monument sign where 6 feet in height and 24 square feet are the maximum permitted. Again, each development or each building within this development would be permitted its own monument sign. However, the developer is proposing to utilize one larger monument sign for the entire business park. Additionally, the developer is proposing to utilize a brick pillar running vertical along the edge of the sign rather than providing a base of exposed brick. However, again, they did provide a drawing during our study session that does show now they're providing a base of exposed brick. The developer will be extending the streetscape enhancements along the frontage of the development. The Planning Commission did review this plan at its February 14th meeting. They voted 3-0 to recommend approval, subject to the following conditions. First one was that the freestanding monument sign be modified to include a base of exposed brick, which the developer has now done. That the freestanding sign serve as the only freestanding sign for lots 1, 2, and 3, which are the lots that front along National Road. Revised sheets need to be submitted showing the revised sign. And the wall signs on any of the buildings within the development need to conform with the city sign code.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Your Honor, I move that we approve ordinance 1705 in its first reading.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Lewis, second by Councilwoman Farst, that we do approve ordinance 1705 in its first reading. Any further comments from anyone? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Herbst?
Yes.
Councilmember Blakesley?
Yes.
Councilmember Gerhardt?
Yes.
Councilmember Fairst?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lewis?
Yes.
Mayor Setzer?
Yes, and the motion carries 6-0. We have no ordinances in their second reading, nor do we have any emergency ordinances. And that brings us to the reports from boards and commissions. We have the Board of Zoning Appeal minutes of December the 28th, 2016. The Civil Service Commission draft minutes of February the 14th, 2017. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board minutes of January the 18th, 2017. Planning Commission minutes of January the 24th, 2017. Public Art in Vandalia draft minutes of January the 17th, 2017, and the Vandalia Cultural Arts Committee draft minutes of January the 17th, 2017. Are there any comments on any of those? Seeing none, we'll go to the conditional use permit at 626 West National Road. Mr. Cruzy?
Thank you, Your Honor. The American Legion Post 668 is requesting conditional use approval to permit a club as a conditional use in the Highway Business District at 626 West National Road. The Legion proposes to purchase 2 lots that will total 1.625 acres. The property directly abuts residential property on Coe Avenue to the south. The club will be open only to veterans, their families, and guests, except for fundraising events that are open to the public and any rentals they may have. The applicant will be required to screen the south property line that abuts residential properties, as well as the loading area and off-street parking areas. The applicant will also need to either provide an additional 35 off-street parking spaces or request a variance from the BZA. The Planning Commission did review this request at its January 24th meeting. They voted 4-0 to recommend approval subject to the following conditions. One, that the applicant shall provide adequate parking on site or request a variance. Two, that all signage shall conform to the requirements of the sign code. The applicant shall provide the required landscaping and screening. The parking lot shall be paved and restriped according to city standards. All loading and unloading shall take place at the northwest corner of the property. All lighting shall be downward shining. The entrance on Helke roads to be closed pending final approval by the Vandalia Fire Department and our traffic engineer. The conditional use will expire if the building permits have not been issued for all buildings or structures within 6 months after approval of the conditional use, or if the conditional use has ceased by discontinuance or abandonment for a period of more than 6 months. And based upon council's discussion of this matter, one additional condition has been added, and that is the asphalt behind the structure from the southeast end of the building to the westernmost edge of the property be removed and replaced with grass. So the area between the building and the rear fence line would be removed, or the asphalt would be removed and replaced with grass.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Your Honor, I'll move that we approve the conditional use permit at 726 West National Road.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Mayor Lewis, second by Councilman Gerhardt, that we do approve the conditional use permit at 626 West National Road. Are there any comments?
Your Honor, I'd like to abstain from the discussion and the vote on this particular issue because the subject property is currently listed with the brokerage in which I'm an owner of.
I'd like to comment. We put a lot of thought into this because my biggest issue was the use of the rear of the building and its proximity to the residents, and the noise that could come from that. So the compromise was taking that driveway out, that ability to drive behind the building out, by replacing that with grass so that they cannot drive around the building and deliver to the rear of the building. Also, a big consideration is what is allowed in that property right now, which could be a worse use, in my opinion, for the residents behind it, which could be a gas station, it could be a fast food restaurant, without even coming before council, not as a conditional use. To me, if we can make this compromise, that alleviates some of the irritation from the residents. Also, the parking, that's kind of a unknown at this time. The drawings of the building are quite a bit of classroom and office usage, which will get down to the square footage ability to use it as a facility or a rental facility. So those numbers are not solid at this point. The lighting, the entryway, all will be controlled by the planning and inspection when they put their plans through. So in answer to those questions, and the drainage at that same time if there's grass behind it. So there was a lot that went into the discussion and the thought of going forward with this.
Anyone else?
I would like to add to that, and I've struggled with this for the last couple weeks. As you request, I tried to put myself in your shoes, and I try to think, okay, what if that was happening in my backyard? And I had to look at all the factors that we've heard from both sides. And one of the things that it's here is because of some of the conditional uses that in order to allow it, but primarily it's already allowed by the zoning code. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. So by adding these conditions to it, I think we can minimize the impact. And that's what I tried to look at, is making sure that hearing your questions and comments and trying to make sure that those have been answered. And some of the things that we did discuss on Saturday, that it's a 11,000 square foot building, and essentially 3,600 of it is used, and that's going to be in the center, and that's for the club. And from what I understand, that doesn't get rented out. And anybody here can correct me too if I'm wrong. From what I understood, that the outside of the building were mostly classrooms, and those are what are going to probably be rented out, from what I understand, and I believe most of us probably did. Again, as it was already pointed out, some of the parking situation, I'm not sure with the number of people that would be there on a daily basis. From what we hear from the census, is a real detriment. I would understand that if it was a larger group, as it was in the past, that they could be on the street. So that's an unknown, as we said, a potential unknown. I also, in the last couple weekends, drove up to the current location and sat in the parking lot for 5 minutes at a time, just randomly, and just to observe. And I have, because I live back in the neighborhood and I drive through there, so I tried to observe and didn't really see anything. I know that we haven't had any complaints currently from some of the neighbors. It could have, maybe not. But again, looking at in its totality, I really can't see anything at this point that's a determining factor not to go forward with this. Certainly taking everything in consideration.
Thank you.
I would agree. In looking at the potential uses of that particular property with no input from the city, they seem to be much more intense than the use proposed. Certainly, the property owners have brought up some, good points. Part of some of the restrictions here are that they're looking to foreclose the use of the entrance onto Helke Road. So that may preclude some of the issues pending approval of the fire department or making arrangements there to have some sort of access. The screening will certainly be an improvement over the fence. I think the little bit of a buffer there with taking up that really unsightly pavement and putting in grass will be an improvement and act as further insulation. And providing that the enforcement or the agreement by the VFW to use the front area to load and unload, that should not completely alleviate, but certainly mitigate the amount of noise. And lastly, the number of parking spaces are a factor of the usable or activity space that are part of the building, and whatever measurement that comes to, the number of parking spaces would be allocated toward that. And it appeared, based by the plans, that there would be more than adequate parking for those particular functions. Based on all of that, it has seemed to me that there would be a less intense use, and indeed it would be less intrusive to the neighbors than more intrusive, and that's why I'm going to favor the motion.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Your Honor, I just have one thing. If I can just confirm with Amber, I believe the fire department has indicated they want the entrance along Helke Road to remain open for fire access, correct? Okay.
Is there a way to limit that, though, from the public versus the fire department?
Well, then your only entrance is out on the National Road. So for folks wanting to turn left is difficult. Well, I think Councilmember Lewis asked if there was a way to shut off the access onto Helke Road for fire department only. So, but then the issue you ran into is then your only entrance is on National Road, and so folks trying to turn left creates difficulties for folks trying to get out of the parking lot and turn in left if you don't have an exit also onto Helke Road. I just wanted to confirm to make sure council understood that entrance will be open.
It did say traffic engineer, so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. If there's no other comment, may we have the vote, please?
Councilmember Blakesley,
Yes.
Councilmember Gerhard,
Yes.
Councilmember Farce,
Yes.
Councilmember Herbst is abstaining, Councilmember Lewis,
Yes.
Mayor Setzer.
Yes, and the motion passes 5 with 1 abstention. The bill listing for January 2017 is in the amount of $2,692,550.30. And that brings us to council comments, starting with Mr. McDonald.
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Mr. Cruzy?
No comments this evening, Your Honor.
Councilman Herbst?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Farce?
Just wanted to add a little bit to the feral cat issue. We had at our meet and greet a couple of weeks ago, a few neighbors came in and talked to us about the issue. And though we were aware of it, we've discussed it in the past. We've been looking at other entities' legislation. But I think meeting some of the people, and one of the neighbors that came in had been bitten, which hadn't crossed my mind, had been bitten by a skunk that was coming up in the yards to get the cat food, and her dog went after the skunk, and to retrieve her dog, she ended up getting bitten by a skunk, then had to go through the rabies series and was in the hospital for 4 months or so. I think we don't think about that the food is out, so the raccoons come up, the coyotes come up to get the squirrels and the cats, and so you get all these wild animals into people's yards in neighborhoods because of this feeding of the feral cats and the overpopulation of all these kittens. It's just gotten to a point where now we have to take some action, and it's too bad that we have to do that. And I don't think anybody wants to have to put legislation in, but if we can't control it another way, that's what we decided we have to do. But I just want to clarify a little bit. The skunk bite was a big deal. So,
Thank you. Councilman Blakesley?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Councilman Gerhard?
No comment tonight.
Vice Mayor Lewis?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, with that, it is recommended the council adjourn to executive session to consider the employment, discipline, promotion, or compensation of a public employee, more specifically matters relating to the performance evaluation of the city manager. And so it is recommended that the regular council meeting be adjourned until the conclusion of a reconvened study session. The study session, which commenced prior to the council meeting, had to be adjourned due to time constraints. And after,
may I-
Well,
Yeah, this
we
was-
had Bob Ehlers to excuse, I believe.
I forgot. Sorry.
let me finish. I'll go on. And after the conclusion of the reconvened study session, this council meeting will be reconvened for the sole purpose of going into the executive session as set forth on the agenda. But now, I need some motions. And the first motion is,
I'd quickly move to excuse Mr. Ehlers from tonight's
Second.
meeting and the workshop.
it's been moved by Vice Mayor Lewis and second by Councilwoman Farce that we excuse Councilman Ehlers from our meeting this evening, and that means all meetings this evening. I'm going to take a voice. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All who are against, the same sign. Thank you very much. Now I need to have a motion that we go into our studies, back to our study session, and then into executive session.
To adjourn this meeting
To
for the
adjourn this
purposes of going
meeting,
back into the study
study
session.
session, and then adjourn the study session to go into the executive session to reconvene back to our council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Can you say that again?
No. Who moved?
I did, Your Honor.
Okay.
And as a reminder, when we reconvene back to this meeting, we will need to take a roll call vote to go into the
Yes, and
executive
I
session,
always
but that will be later.
And I always do that. And then, okay, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Sorry.
Same sign, so the motion does pass, 6-0, and so we will adjourn.